Hi, welcome to Infodumpies. My name's Brianne. I'm autistic, I have ADHD, my pronouns are she, her, and if you ever wanted to poison me, a single piece of toast could make me shit and fart for what feels like forever.
Hi, I'm Violet. My pronouns are she, her. I have ADHD, and I just really like things that are fun and whimsical, and that's kind of what they're there for. Like, when people make stuff that's just nice and fun and good, and that's all it does. I love stuff like that.
So what are we talking about today?
Well, today I wanted to info dump a little bit about an interesting creature of sorts. I say creature, but like maybe not a creature entirely. You kind of know. So I was I was hoping this would be a big surprise
I'm
and
so
do a big
sorry.
goof, but
I'm
Brienne has
so
already.
sorry.
No, it's okay. You didn't do anything wrong. It's just I was like, oh, I'm gonna goof on her with this topic. She's gonna think I'm talking about one thing, and then I'm gonna do a Shyamalan twist, and then now I'm talking about this different thing.
So I walked into her room right before this recording. I saw what YouTube channel she was watching, and then the autism said, oh, I also follow this YouTuber, and of all the things that she's talked about recently, I know which one my lovely wife would find absolutely enthralling.
Yeah.
So I figured it out. I'm sorry.
It's all right. And I just want to say, I don't want anyone to think I'm like stealing from that person's
no.
video. I just
No.
I watched
sparked
like
your interest.
Yeah, I watched like a tenth of the video and was like, no, I need to stop. I'm gonna jump back into this after I do do the Infodumpies episode.
Do your own research. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. That was kind of my goal. I did watch a little bit further in the video later on, just because I was trying to figure something out timeline wise. We'll get into that.
I have not watched the video actually.
Cool.
So I know what the topic is. I don't know anything about the specifics.
Okay, cool. Well, first off, I guess, shout out to the Strange Aeons YouTube channel. You did a video about this recently. And thank you for talking about this because it really led me down a rabbit hole. I'm going to talk about a funky little critter called an occlupanid, or rather, I guess the term would be phylum of, or the kingdom. No, wait. Okay, so I'm talking about little bugs, kind of.
So there's kingdom?
Yeah.
Phylum, class, order, family, genus, species.
Yeah, well, there's domain first. Domain, kingdom.
Yeah. Domain.
Yeah. What I want to talk about is occlupanids. And I'm guessing you don't know what I mean when I say occlupanids.
I know it's bread clips.
Yeah, okay, so they're bread clips. We're talking about...
They're bread clips.
Yeah, so we're talking about bread clips. You're probably going, what the hell is an occlupanid? I know what a bread clip is, but what's an occlupanid? Let me back up a little bit. What you know as a bread clip are actually occlupanids. They are generally found as parasitoids on bagged pastries in supermarkets, hardware stores, and other large commercial establishments.
I love that. I love already that they've classified them as parasitoid.
Yep, exactly, yeah. These are, I say creatures with air quotes, because they are really interesting. It's hard to define them. Their fascinating and complex life cycle is unfortunately severely under-researched. What is known is that they take nourishment from the plastic sacks that surround the bagged product, not the product itself. So they don't eat the bread, right? They eat the plastic, which was the previous thought was that they ate the bread. So there are some exceptions to the whole eating plastic thing with occlupanids. There are some occlupanids that live off of rubber bands, and there are some occlupanids that live off of analog watch hands, if you can believe that.
I have no clue what bread clip would be on an analog watch hand.
Oh, these aren't... No. You're confused. These aren't bread clips. These are occlupanids.
Sorry. Occlupanids.
These are occlupanids. Think of a bread clip. Occlupanids look like bread clips. They're very, very similar.
Oh, and very similar.
Almost like so similar. And so the thing that holds a watch hand to the center like stem is actually a type of an occlupanid.
Oh,
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. So they're not vegan really, but they kind of are. So
Watches aren't vegan.
well, analog watches, digital ones
Oh,
are.
yeah. So that's why I have an Apple Watch, because it's plant-based.
Exactly. Which is fine. And hey, listen, if you're out there and you're wearing an analog watch right now and you're vegan, there might be an occlupanid in there. Don't worry. There might be a pseudo occlupanid, something that looks like an occlupanid but is not. So it might be vegan. It's just so hard to say. We need a lot more research in this field.
I heard, though, that the artificial occlupanids are basically just plastic. So
Oh, no. You're thinking of the artificial occlupanids that have come out fairly recently that are actually made of cardboard. Real occlupanids are, in fact, made of plastic. So according to the taxonomy of Occlupanida, they are in the class Occlupanida, occlu meaning to close, and pan meaning bread.
Yeah.
Exactly. They're placed under the kingdom Microsynthera of the phylum Plasticae, which is plastic creatures, of course. Occlupanids share the phylum Plasticae with things like 45 record holders, plastic juice caps, and other often ignored small plastic objects.
Like zip ties?
Zip ties, yes, I would say, fall into that category. Absolutely. Condoms, in some cases, can be considered. Actually, I'm sorry, those are in the Elasticae. I apologize. Those are in the Elasticae. There's also the Aluministrae class, which is things like, the metal twist ties that you'll see at the grocery store in the fruit section?
Oh,
Bottle
yes,
caps,
yes.
paper clips, soda pop tabs. Those sorts of things are in Aluministrae. But today, we're just talking about occlupanids, which are specifically in the class Plasticae.
Now, are you going to go into who did this? This whole thing? Are you going to go into who
if you
did
mean
this?
So what I am going to be, I mean, nature did this, right? If we're nature did this, but there is an organization called HORG, HORG, that I do want to talk about. And I think it'll kind of shed some insight into how we started the taxonomy of occlupanids. And I think it'll kind of shed some light on the whole situation. So occlupanids have been known throughout civilized history as a common polymer parasite. And the formal study of occlupanology is thought to have begun in Florence, Italy in the late 1600s by the great polymath Altissima Horgia, better known by his Latinized name Ultimus Horg.
What?
As a young boy in Bassiano, Ultimus collected with care the horn and tortoiseshell occlupanids that would litter the cobblestone streets. An accomplished merchant, Ultimus is credited with the first description of occlupanids as a species, the first description of occlupanids in a text, in fact, the first mention of occlupanids at all in Western literature. He is also the first to devise a system of classification of the occlupanids he found. And I have some pictures I can send you later. They'll be on the Patreon notes of Ultimus's personal occlupanid collection circa 1642.
Okay, so I appreciate what you're doing, but I can't do the kayfabe that comes with pretending it's not bread clips. I have to know which parts of this are factual or not, and I feel like most of our autistic audience will agree with me. So, is Mr. Horg a real person?
No.
I didn't think so.
You got me. So, there is a whole history of occlupanology that is listed on the HORG website, which is, and this really upset me a little bit. It's horg.com. It's not
horg.org. It could
horg.org.
be horg.org. Yeah.
It could be horg.org, but it's not. It's horg.com.
Horg.org would be so... I hope it was taken, and that's the reason.
I mean, there's a reason, and I can explain, but it's been this website for 30 years. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so people have been doing this bread clip thing for 30 years, for the bulk of my life.
For a good long time, I will say. And I'll get into where bread clips even come from and all of that, where occlupanids come from and everything.
I love this. This is extremely chaotic autistic behavior.
So HORG.com and occlupanids, which, by the way, HORG stands for the Holotypic Occlupanid Research Group. That was started by John Daniel in 1994. John Daniel went to school for invertebrate zoology and ended the university experience that he was having in sculpture. And he found that both of these things were very intertwined.
I don't want to diagnose anyone.
Yeah.
Very cool. Sounds like someone I would absolutely click with.
Yeah, invertebrate zoology. Like, the moment I read that he started out going to school for invertebrate zoology, I was like, you can go to school for that?
Yeah.
For stuff that ain't got vertebrates?
Yep.
What the heck? But he ended up in sculpture. Like, he finished university in sculpture, and he found that there was so much crossover between these two things. It was very interesting. And in 1994, he found a bread clip in his friend's apartment and was struck by how deeply the twin fascinations that he had were distilled into a tiny shard of plastic. In the quest to make reclosable plastic bags, humans had mass-produced tiny sets of brightly hued yet vaguely sinister biomechanical invertebrate jaws. Their shape also reminded me of the parasitic forms of things like whale lice, ticks, and tapeworms, their whole body committed to the one act of grabbing on and never letting go. And these things were everywhere, a stunning variety of shapes and colors. So I started to wonder, what if these tiny bits of plastic weren't so passive? And he goes on to say, I started getting really excited about the idea of creating a taxonomy for these things. Exactly what we just started talking about.
Yeah.
Shortly after this, he realized that at some point, basically, a friend of his had purchased a domain name that was essentially random, just HORG.com. I don't know the full context. I wasn't able to kind of see exactly where that came from. I think it was just kind of a funny random name that they thought would be funny to have that domain name, basically. And he was like,
that is
peak
autism. That is, again, peak autism humor of HORG.
Exactly, HORG. But yeah, he basically said, I love this, and I really think this is something that is interesting, and I can make a whole world around this. So that's what he did. He started the HORG website. He created the Holotypic Occlupanid Research Group. It's been roughly the same website for about 30 years, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But obviously,
I'd love that.
Yeah, the information within the website has been updated and added to over time, because HORG is not just one person. HORG is everyone who collects and sends in samples of occlupanids. This is something I learned from Strange Aeons' video, is that really when occlupanids started to blow up was when they added a contact HORG form to their website, so people could send in samples of occlupanids that they find in the wild.
So they they made it interactive.
Exactly. And as soon as that happened, it just took off. There are tons of different species of occlupanids listed on the website. And I have a general kind of like taxonomy chart that I can send you here in a minute. But before I do that, I have a little bit of a quiz for you. So I'm going to send you a picture of the bread clip that I have most commonly seen in supermarkets and things. And I want you to guess where on the taxonomy you think this is. Is this one of the ancestral occlupanids, or is this a more evolved occlupanid, more recent evolution? So this, when I think of a bread clip, this is what I think of in terms of in my head.
Yeah. It's a little square. It's got the little teethy things that really do look like mandibles of a beetle. He was right. It does. I had never thought of it like that. But it's just a basic little square. It's got some little nubbins on either side of it, which my best guess for those has always been that they manufacture them in a sheet and snap them off.
Yep, exactly.
And that's what happens. But yeah, it's just got a little kind of like a mushroom guy with two little legs is what the hole in the middle looks like. Yeah. With little grippy plastic things. Very basic.
Yeah. So where on the I guess actually it wouldn't be taxonomy. I think it would be phylogeny is the term, which is like the map of the ancestry of like the evolution of occlupanids. Do you think this is more of an ancestral occlupanid, or do you think this is a more recent evolved occlupanid?
Ancestral.
Interesting. So this is actually one of the more recent occlupanids. There's actually there's a more, I say recent in terms of the phylogeny. This is not the basic form of an occlupanid. This is an evolution of so this what we're looking at is Toxodentidae is the specific species of occlupanid we're looking at. If you take the lumps on the side off and slightly round out the little mushroom-shaped hole in the middle, so you've got a simpler shape, you end up with Concaviculidae. Concaviculidae.
So you make it round and not crispy.
Yeah. So
holy shit.
Toxodentidae evolved in the fictional phylogeny we're talking about from Concaviculidae. These are tough words, y'all. I promise I'm doing my best. And actually, if you can believe it, from this, there are 2 branches. The one that we are most familiar with is the subset that all of the things that we've talked about before the hypothetical fall under the category of orthogonadectes.
Gonna deck these nuts.
Gonna deck these nuts. But there is another type that splits off from here that has been found. They're confirmed to be occlupanids, but they are very, very different. They still have that same basic shape, but you'll see what I mean when I send it here. This is the kirigami.
What the fuck is this?
So this is an interesting.
What the fuck is this?
It's a divergence from the hypothetical ancestral occlupanid that takes a complete. It grows in a different way rather than retaining this. It evolves in a different way rather than retaining the square shape of the orthogonadectes. It splits wider. The jaws open wider, form into inverted outward-facing hooks, and they actually have holes along the sides where they can reach over and hook the holes on the other side to actually form an enclosure, a more permanent bond on whatever they're grabbing. Isn't that interesting? It's fascinating. Nature's just beautiful.
And this is one that exists? It looks like the hole in the middle of this bread clip is the shape of like a party hat. With a little festive little round spiky thing on the top. It's got 2 little outward hooks on either side of the opening, and it looks like there's a rectangle for a body, and it's got a little cowboy hat shape kind of on the top as though it's wearing a hat.
Yeah.
It's wild. So, it looks like it would be on the subreddit for what is this thing?
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure it has been at some point. Someone's probably posted somewhere and said, "What the heck is this thing?" So really, this is a bread clip, but it's more of a bag clip. It's meant for larger bags that need a sturdier hold. So those hooks will actually reach over to the other side. They'll fold over and grab the holes on the other side, or in some cases it's a post that it grabs onto, and it basically cinches the bread clip shut. This phylogeny is not complete. There's a lot of gaps. There's a lot of speculation about things, but what I think about this is I think it's just so fun, and I think it's so interesting that people have spent the time to say, hey, this is what would otherwise be essentially a worthless piece of plastic waste, and said, I am going to take this and do something fun with it and make it worthwhile and make it matter again, but in really an even more meaningful way. I think that's really lovely. There's even people that are part of the Occlupanid Society that collect occlupanids that do art with them. There's a person in particular named Shani Nottingham who does really amazing sculptural work with occlupanids. And I'm going to send you a couple pictures right now. These will also be on the Patreon notes as well.
Whoa.
Yeah. So basically there's some sculptures here of things like a chair, what looks like kind of like some vases and like containers, all made out of a sort of wire frame covered in occlupanids or bread clips, essentially, of all different colors and shapes.
All of the bread clips are, yeah. like if you tried to string them in a necklace, but the necklace was made of wire, and then you shape that wire to do things. So it's these thick, colorful plastic sort of wire centered things covered in these bread clips. And there's like big, like structure things and what looks like a lampshade in the lower corner with the thing in the middle. Like she made it into like a lighting piece.
Yeah,
Wild.
it's
Like,
really impressive.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and the person that does this art, Shani Nottingham, they also do some sculpture where they actually melt, like partially melt the bread clips. You can still tell what they are. I'm going to send you one more picture here of some what looks basically like, if you kind of at a distance, it's like fine china, but if you look up close, it's basically a bunch of melted bread clips
Oh,
with like
yeah.
gold leaf and beautiful paintings applied to them. Just really, really interesting artwork, and I think a lot of it is a kind of a commentary on the way that we dispose and use plastic.
I follow a few people who make stuff out of plastic.
Hmm.
And they're like, I think the term is something like micro recycling or something. They recycle it in other things by melting it and doing other really cool stuff with it and using molds. And this is like just a very specific version of that is just bread clips. But
Yeah.
yeah, like there's a plate that has little clouds painted on it, and all of the edges look almost lace-like, but it's all bread clips. There's one
It's
that's
really
got a little
beautiful.
flower pattern that almost looks like it would be on like my grandma's dishes, and it's got a little
Yeah.
border. There's one that's got gold leaf all around the side that looks like a big platter. There's one I see the corner of that has a little mushroom painted on it. It's all very cool, but they all look like plates.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting too. There's one that it's blue and white like you would expect from like very fancy china, but the blue actually just comes from the ink of the date stamp on the bread clip rather than like actual paint added to it. But the way it's spread out is done so carefully. Some of their artwork on their website actually shows them doing things like pinning, like you would pin a butterfly if you were going to do
Oh,
taxidermy
fun.
butterfly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they do that with bread clips and occlupanids and things like that. And it's just delightful. It's like, oh, that's so cool. You have artwork of like a pinned you've had to
Bread
contain
clip.
this
Yeah.
creature, this bread clip, which is just so charming. And they really do come in such a huge variety of shapes and colors. Honestly, I think the next time I see a bread clip on the ground, I'm gonna snatch it up. I'm gonna become an occlupanid hunter. So I'm really excited
I
about
am
these. I think
so
they're really neat.
sorry. I am so sorry that you live in a house that has to remain gluten free because of
Yeah,
my illness, my celiac illness. I'm so sorry that I've
it's all right.
hindered your occlupanid research with my bad tummy.
You know what? That's okay. You know, it's just like some people are allergic to dogs or cats. You might be allergic to occlupanids. You know,
The
maybe that's where
occlupanids,
celiac comes from. You know.
no, because they have them on gluten free bread, and I've
True.
not had a reaction. But
That's true.
I need them to explain to me why gluten free bread is always so tiny.
Yeah. Why is that?
I don't
God,
get
let's get.
it.
Yeah,
It's bread for a baby.
it's baby bread. Why?
It's
Why so
baby
small?
bread.
So where where do all these things come from? Like we know where HORG comes from now. There's a whole like fake history that has been written up about where occlupanids come from and all of this stuff. But like the bread clips, we're talking about bread clips, right? Where do those come from? If you had to guess where all of these bread clips are coming from, what would you assume is the place they're coming from based off of what you know about capitalism?
Bread clip factory.
Yes, but more specifically, one giant company that makes all of them, right?
Oh yeah, I mean probably.
Yep, that's exactly the case. There is a company called Quick Lock based in Yakima, Washington, that has been manufacturing bread clips, these little tabs, ever since their founder whittled one from a credit card on a flight because they needed to close a bag of peanuts.
That seems apocryphal.
Yeah,
That
I
feels
really think so.
apocryphal.
So Floyd Paxton is Quick Lock's founder. This is a guy who, from the research that I was doing, possibly had like Nazi ties. So not a good dude, to be clear, Also a Nepo baby, because his father was like a manufacturing engineer that were producing nails during World War II and made a whole bunch of money. And so this was a guy who was already in manufacturing and engineering and stuff like that, and just had a good idea. Paxton was known for repeatedly telling the story about how he came up with the idea of the bread clip. As he told it, he was flying home on an airliner in 1952 and opened a bag of peanuts, whereupon he realized he had no way to reclose it. He rummaged through his wallet and found an expired credit card and hand-carved his first bag clip with a small penknife. You know, back when you could take those on planes.
Right. They could smoke on
Right.
the plane.
Right. You could smoke on the plane. You could bring a knife.
Probably did
you
all
could probably
this
bring
while
a gun on
smoking.
the plane.
Yeah, probably.
Paxton was working with a company called Pacific Fruit that packed and shipped fruit around the world.
When you're gay and lived, when you're gay and
fruit
live.
packer. I've been packing fruit around anyway.
I'm a fruit packer.
So this company hired him, or his company rather, to find a way to replace the rubber bands with a better bag closure that they could use. He remembered his bag of peanuts and hand-whittled another clip from a small sheet of plexiglass, and shortly after had an order in hand for 1 million clips. Interestingly enough, he was not able to secure a patent on the clip itself, but he was able to secure a patent on the machines that manufacture the clips.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he developed a specific device, a die-cut machine, to produce the clips at high speed. But he never actually won the patent for the clips themselves, which I think is really interesting.
That patent stuff about machines is so interesting. I should do an episode about Talon zippers and YKK, and basically stealing the patents for this stuff. I should do an episode on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great idea.
But that's so I just, part of me, the peanut credit card story gives me very much like, and then everybody clapped energy. I don't know. Maybe it happened. Maybe it did.
Oh yeah, no. I think there's some, with any good lie, there's a grain of truth, I think. And given that this guy has, from what I have heard, I haven't confirmed this, but from what I've heard, some sort of Nazi tie, there's a high likelihood that a huge amount of this story is falsified. But the idea that one could take an expired credit card and cut this shape into it, I believe that.
I believe one could.
Yeah. Now, what prompted him to do that specific shape to hold it shut? I don't know if we'll ever know that, because it sounds like it just came to him. He was just thinking of these nuts and wanted to close them up, and it just came to him.
So they all come from this one place. Do ones in other, like, do we export them all from Yakima, Washington, or are there other countries have their own bread clip thing?
So from what I understand, Quick Lock produces most of them for the world, and they do export some. However, there are some places like Japan where they kind of produce it and do their own thing. The kirigami that you saw earlier is a Japanese design that was developed and produced by a Japanese company. I'm not sure the exact name of the company, but they just produced
maybe it's kirigami.
It could be kirigami, very well. I just know the kirigami name from the phylogeny chart that we were looking at earlier. So there's a lot of different types of occlupanids that are different, like regional ones, and different types from different parts of the world that are like more common in certain areas. And I don't know how many other companies there are producing bread clips, but I do know there are some out there that are particularly rare, because Strange Aeons apparently actually interviewed the creator of occlupanology. Cool. and basically talked about one of the questions that she asked was, do you have any really rare ones? And absolutely. There was one that a person sent in from, I believe, Japan, and it's the only one that has ever been submitted or seen by any occlupanid hunter. So it's like a one-of-a-kind one. There's some that are extremely, extremely rare. There is a few that, he told a story about and basically said, hey, there was somebody that had a whole bunch of these in like an aquarium as like an art project as a kid, And then when they grew up, they heard about HORG and occlupanology and kind of dismantled that to look for any particularly noteworthy ones, and sent in a few that were extremely rare, including some that were like transparent plastic from like the 70s and
Whoa,
things like that.
cool.
Yeah.
I've never
There's some of
seen
these
a
that have like really cool
transparent one.
designs. Yeah, me neither, honestly. It like I think that was something that they probably did way back in the 70s. They were just kind of using whatever melted up plastic they had on hand, I guess. I don't even know. But yeah, like there's all kinds of rare and like oddly shaped ones. There's some that are like really long rectangles. There's a whole set of them that are like ones that have advertising or labels printed onto them. And I think they're kind of treated like camouflage, almost like a stick bug type of
Oh my
thing,
God.
which I think is really lovely. There's a whole bunch of different families of occlupanids. You know, if you go to the HORG.com website, there's a whole list on the right side of the different families. And just clicking around is really interesting. Looking at something like the Inoridae, for example. The Inoridae is described from a single contested species. Little is known about these undoubtedly occlupanid-bodied entities. So basically, this is a closed occlupanid. Doesn't have an opening to actually slide a bag across. You would pull a bag through,
That
apparently.
sounds so impractical.
Yeah, it's basically like, if imagine it the shape of a dog tag, but with a hole on one end.
No.
Really interesting.
No,
Yeah.
I hate that. I hate that.
Yeah.
I hate that one.
It is thought that these occlupanids lost their oral groove and instead rely on their
Oral
cyclops-like vesicle to attach to their host.
I never lose my oral groove.
No, not at all. That's why we do multiple podcasts. But yeah, where these entities themselves may be definitively found is as of yet unknown. But I think it's so interesting, and there's a whole breakdown and the whole set of symbols to like mark and identify each individual type of occlupanid and family and everything, specific samples. I mean, it's wild. It's really cool stuff, and I just think they're neat. I just want to go get a whole bunch of bread clips. But
Humans
yeah,
are cute. Humans are cute.
Yeah.
Humans
it.
are cute. It's fun. It's fun. It is so autism coded, like so extremely autism coded, to be like, oh, me, I'm wild about bread clips, and it's like,
Right.
listen, I need to know everything about you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's so odd to me that there's such a variety of these things. I don't know if the creator could have known back when he started all of this just how much of a variety of these things there actually were.
Especially for all being made mostly in one place is the part that kind of baffles me, because it just seems impractical to have made that many different types over the years.
Exactly, yeah. But there's enough that there is, you know, if you go to the website, HORG.com, there is an identification guide.
It makes me mad that it's not HORG.org every time.
I know. Same. I want to say HORG.org, but I'm telling you, I tried it. It don't work. It doesn't redirect. Hey, listen, if you're a representative of HORG.com and you need help getting that domain, let me know. I'd be more than happy to try and help. With that said, there is a whole bunch of variety, and there's enough to the point where if you go to the HORG.com website, there's an identification guide that's interactable. So if you find an occlupanid, you can open that up, and based off of, first, it'll ask you, what is the oral groove shape of your occlupanid? There is 15 different possible oral groove general shapes to base off of. Exactly, yeah. There are some really wild ones in here. There's some that look like a whole bunch of spikes, kind of like a weird, like, spiky butthole. There's some that's like a weird blown out rectangle. There's some that looks like a martini glass with really long, flappy love handles. I mean, it's wild. It's a whole variety. And if you click into any one of these, there is a specific family that it will generally bring you to, or if it needs to ask like more questions, it'll say, do you have this or that? But in general, there's these 15 jaw shapes that are kind of the core tenet of identifying occlupanids, which I think is really interesting.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Makes me want to go out and buy bread real bad.
Right? Exactly. I feel like they have like Pogs energy with this, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Except better than Pogs because there is a practical application.
Right, exactly. It's literally not just plastic for plastic's sake. I mean, well,
I mean, it
it is.
is. It
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
And the thing that I think is interesting is I was looking into how many of these get produced. And just if we're just talking about Quick Lock, there was an interview done where they asked them how many bread clips do you produce a year? And they basically just said it's in the billions.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So not great for the environment. But what I think is really interesting is this is something that Strange Aeons mentioned in their YouTube video. If you were to stop producing these today, you would still be finding them basically forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're not biodegradable. They're plastic. They're gonna be here. They're polystyrene is what they're generally made out of. And they're gonna be here for hundreds and hundreds of years. As long as anyone here listening to this now will be alive, most likely, they'll be here. And that's if they stopped making them today, which they're not doing. So there have been more eco-friendly variants that have been produced. And some people have actually submitted these cardboard, like pseudo fake occlupanids as samples, but they have been rejected. These are just imitation occlupanids. They're not real occlupanids. Yeah.
Oh, so
which
it
I think
must
is interesting.
Be plastic.
Exactly. Yeah. It wouldn't fall into the plastique.
That's
kingdom,
true.
I believe.
That's true.
Yeah. So it's interesting, and I like the kind of line in the sand that they've drawn here, and I really like the idea that yes, we can switch to cardboard occlupanid. I'm sorry, bread clips. God, it's anytime I see a bread clip now, I'm going to call it an occlupanid. We can switch to cardboard bread clips, but that doesn't mean the value of occlupanids will be any less, and in fact they would become greater, more rare artifacts at that point.
Yeah.
So the potential for occlupanids is really it's sky's the limit. And I can imagine, some retro futurism video game Fallout style thing where instead of bottle caps as currency, they
collect
use
occlupanids. Yeah.
Yeah. And like depending on what family, it's like a different value. It's like, oh man, that guy's walking around holding a bunch of agglutinathidase. Whew, loaded.
Damn.
Yeah, it's like, oh man, I only get paid 1 toxidentide a day? Sheesh. Ugh. That's not even enough to afford a single glizzy. That's how they talk in the future.
Yes, they do. They do. Well, thank you so much for teaching me basically science.
Yeah, before we go, this is real science, by the way. People have cited occlupanology in papers talking about taxonomy and morphology and medical papers. They have actually been used and referenced in papers, medical papers, in situations where people have swallowed occlupanids and it's caused medical issues. Yeah. No, there's people that have accidentally, or in some cases through, some sort of mental health disorder, who knows, swallowed one of these. And they can actually be, as you can imagine, given the mandible-like shape, quite dangerous to swallow.
Yeah.
Bowel perforations being the most common threat from what I understand. So this has actually done real good in the world to assist research in how to make these things safer. Yeah, and classifying things. And like what to do. Like, let's say one of these is swallowed. Your doctor may want to know what family of occlupanid it is to determine how dangerous it actually is.
Yeah, because some of them have hooks on the outside too.
Exactly, yeah. Some of them have hooks on the outside. Some of them, all of the interior little prongs are all dull, so the risk is quite low. Some of them even literally don't have any hooks at all, like we saw with that one particular variety, the Inoridae. So, yeah, I just think it's so cool.
Neat.
I love this stuff.
Well, let's go buy some gluten-free bread.
Yeah. Oh, God, I'm down. I would love a sandwich so bad.
Let's go make you a sandwich, girl.
Oh, God, I love us. Oh, I love you.
I love you.
Go make me a sandwich. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, no, I'm just kidding. Let's make sandwiches together, baby.
Hey, friends. friends, I want to thank our Patreon supporters like Dave Perrell, Steve Hernacki, Megan E., Carl Brooks, Natasha Neves, Laysan, Gus Lucy, Helen Clifford, B. Trossler, Kelly Brennan, Sewing Seraph, Rachel Rachelson, Fintago, Randy Leving, Stephanie Ritter, and Chrissy. As usual, you know the way to help us. Tell other people about the show. We don't take paid advertisements. We don't do paid advertisements, and the way we grow is entirely by word of mouth. So if you want to help us out, you can tell friends about the show. You can post about us in your favorite subreddit. You can go chat about us with your friends and just say, hey, you should check this show out. If you want to help us more, you can subscribe on your podcatcher of choice to help the algorithms know to recommend us to other people and just kind of help us get boosted up in the algorithms a little bit. If you want to see what Violet and I are up to elsewhere on the internet, you can check out the show details to see what we're up to on social media. And if you're in a place to support us fiscally, financially, fungibly, if you have money to spare and you want to throw a little money at us, you can go to the show details to find a link to the Mixnomer Patreon page where you will get bonus material for stuff we do for any of the shows Mixnomer does now and will be doing in the future. That is your one-stop shop. And if you want to come hang out with us, you can go to the show details to find a link to our Discord server where we do lots of fun stuff like our weekly Stitch and Bitch is actually quite the pop-in event. We have an international crowd come hang out and just do some stitching and some bitching. We have body doubling to help the ADHD bitches in the group get some stuff done. I'm bitches. I'm ADHD bitches. It helps me get stuff done. We played Another Crab's Treasure the other day, which is like Dark Souls but with the crab, and had a really fun stream doing that. But yeah, the Discord server is great. The vibes are right, and if you want to come chill with us, go to the show details to find a link to the Discord server. Well, that's all I've got for you today, my friends. Until next time, clever sign off.